Today is November 20th. This is the Breakaway USA live show. We are going to talk about January 6th. We're going to talk about the brand new Argentinian president that just got elected last night. And we're also going to talk about how to talk about politics and culture at the dinner table. So the January 6 videos dropped on Friday. The internet basically crashed the site, which I think was an amazing thing. Everybody wanted to go know the truth, everyone from the left to the right, which I think is amazing. There's a couple of videos that I wanted to pull up here and show. There's some really defining moments, I think, some really revealing moments. So here's a video inside of somebody actually getting arrested and then showing some camaraderie after he gets unhandcuffed. So if you want to play that, perfect. So he got arrested. These are two cops. And then watch this. He fist bumps them. Like it was all planned. Like, wow. I don't know. Like this to me screams setup. This to me screams that there was some sort of collusion, some sort of inside job, some sort of false flag, and it's not actually an insurrection. I think we got to stop using that word around this because it's not what this is.
Any logical person looking at this video, if you had no context, right? If you had absolutely no context on what was happening, and someone saw this, the logical line of reasoning would go from, I see this, he's handcuffed. Now he's being unhandcuffed and the police are not charging him with anything. They're not moving him to a secondary custody. They are removing the handcuffs and they are giving him a fist bump and then everything goes as planned. If I asked anybody, what do you think is happening here? The people would be extremely confused. They would think, well, they're friends or they're hanging out or it was planned. So once you add in the context of what we know now, it just adds more to the validity of people finding out that this was a complete falsification of this narrative that they were painting.
Yeah, I think it 1,000% validates what we've all been saying for the last 2.5 years, that it was a setup. It was planned. People were coerced into the Capitol building. That there was plants there. There's even a New York Post article that says that one of the reasons why they couldn't release the January 6 tapes was because they lost count of how many feds were there. So, like, if you follow the story, right, when it happened, like everyone said it was a setup, and then authorities said it wasn't, and then we found out that there were some feds there, and the authorities said that there wasn't, and then it turns out that there was, and they actually lost count of how many feds there were at January 6th. So it's just like, where is the accountability? Like, they lied to us. Is there going to be any repercussions?
The last few commissions, big commissions that I remember, was the September 11th commission. There is this just use two examples, and this one here. There was so much that didn't get done under the guise of we can't tell you because there's some things that we just can't reveal. But what we are going to reveal are just clearly geared to not letting us really know what happened. So what is the point of these blue ribbon commissions or these committees if they're not actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. There's another video that we have. It's actually very revealing. If we can get the sound on that one too. It's Capitol Police talking about infiltrating as Antifa in the crowd.
I did remember seeing that one, and they got caught red-handed on that one.
I mean, it's on video. It's
I was thinking yesterday, you posted a very incredible video that I actually posted. It's about a 5-minute video. If you haven't seen it, it's on my Instagram. They Instagram took it down. I appealed it. They put it back up.
Oh,
But
really?
it's yeah, I appealed it and they put it back up. They said that it was I was inciting violence. I was like, oh my gosh, don't even start with this. They put it back up. It's a lot of police footage from those Axos cameras that all police have now with the sound. And had these cameras not been required for the officers to wear, we wouldn't have gotten a lot of this video footage that has been released showing the officers launching concussion grenades, smoke bombs, paintballs, and just ripping into the crowd to get them stirred up. It's like
Mhm.
it's like a nest of bees that you go and you start messing with where the bees are calm, then the bees clearly get mad. I mean, look, one of the guys, he had a paintball go through his cheek. He was just sitting there. There was a guy, yeah, it went straight through his cheek. He had a hole and he plugged it in with like gauze because he got shot from one of the Capitol police officers that were just pelting the crowd with these paintballs.
Mm,
So, you feel bad for the people who are just sitting there and all of a sudden you see a concussion grenade fall right in the middle of them and explode. And it's just like, wow, that's just that that shouldn't happen, basically.
yeah. Well, the question everyone should be asking, I think, is number one, does the center left see what we're seeing? Like, are they looking at the videos like we're watching them and saying, oh, maybe the media did lie to us. Maybe this wasn't actually a violent insurrection. Maybe these people were just goaded into everything, right? Because I think the far left is still going to see it like an insurrection. They're not going to change their mind. But is the center left going to do that? Because I think that's an important question to ask. Here, can we
Well,
get some sound on this?
yeah.
Fed. The editing on this video is great.
Well, we go undercover Antifa in the crowd. So, can you put that back in? Well, we go undercover Antifa in the crowd. Antifa.
Wow.
That's amazing. So I mean, it's pretty obvious that that guy's a Fed. I've looked at Antifa in the eyes at a couple rallies, and they all have bags under their eyes. Their eyes are kind of grayed out. This guy looks like a healthy dude who probably works out all the time. Like Antifa is, like in my experience up in Seattle, they're high schoolers, right?
Yeah.
They're just they're young. Like I bet you it's 16 to 20. They're not full grown adults. They all have bags under their eyes because they're staying up late, being trolls on Twitter, and then coming out with, battering rams and all their black armor and all the face masks and everything. They don't want to show their face. Like obviously that guy's a Fed.
Yeah, and the clean cut, just out of college, or 20, 25 to 30, those guys stand out like a sore thumb because they're not crazy like the regular Antifa people are. They don't
Mhm.
act erratic. They're very methodical in
Mhm.
their actions. And when you see them acting like Antifa, or when you see them acting like something they're not, it comes off as not organic.
Mhm.
There's a big difference. And if you watch any videos of these groups that people are calling out, these guys masked with like Nazi flags and things like that, people call them out. Feds,
Mhm.
feds, feds, demask, take off your mask. And we see that this happened with one of these groups. I don't know the name of the group, but there was a call for them to demask them, and they started taking their masks off. And as soon as they took their masks off, these guys started hiding their faces. They were
Mhm.
running scared like children. And one of the guys was doxxed as this guy that went to like UCSB or one of the UCs. And on his profile picture, it says that when he graduates this December, or which was last year, he
Mhm.
wants to work for the federal government. So
Oh,
they
no
took
way.
that post down. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, but it was
Hmm.
pretty incredible. But to go back to your point, I think that the more people share these videos that aren't necessarily associated with any kind of political movement or, the left or the right. They're just people that are saying something doesn't add up. Let me share this. Other people start seeing it,
Right.
and they're exposed to this stuff, whereas before
Mhm.
they wouldn't have been.
Right. Right. Because questions should be asked, right? It shouldn't just like go, it shouldn't fly under the radar, because this is one of the, the big national tragedies of the last, 100 years. People are comparing it to Pearl Harbor and 9/11, and we're seeing the videos, and it's not anywhere close to that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And the more videos that come out, so apparently Mike Johnson is going to be releasing more January 6th videos.
good.
From what I've read. I don't know how many there are, but I did think there was more than what were released in that public dump that
Yeah.
they or rather in the dump of videos, not in a public dump.
Yeah.
But that's where all the paperwork from the short sellers ended up when it magically burned up. Yeah, I don't want to get into that now, but there's been a lot of fires lately. There have been a lot of fires lately that have been unannounced and unexpected, and just
Yeah.
happen to just burn things that people want to see.
So here's something that I observed as Speaker Johnson, after Speaker Johnson released these videos, is he released 40,000 hours of it, right? And a lot of it was edited in the fact that there was all the faces were blurred out. Okay. And so that doesn't happen overnight. I'm betting that the process to release these videos was already underway. And my guess is that it took a long time to go through all 44,000 hours of these videos to go ahead and edit them.
Tons of time.
Right.
Tons.
So I want to give credit where credit is due, because Speaker Johnson couldn't have done that. I don't know how long it takes through 44,000 hours, but that's a lot of man hours, right? So
there's a lot of indexing. There's a lot of
Mhm.
it's a lot of work to go and do all that.
Yeah. So I want to be magnanimous here. I know a lot of people aren't huge fans of Kevin McCarthy, but it kind of seems like the work had been started before Speaker Johnson actually got into office. So like maybe there was a plan. The timing was perfect, to be honest, right? Speaker Johnson released it right before Thanksgiving, which I think was very strategic. I'm guessing that, and this is a total guess, right? I know a lot of people don't like Kevin McCarthy, but what if that was a plan? What if there was a plan all along to release it right before Thanksgiving so that everyone would be together with their family so they could go talk about it, right? We're always, in politics, there's always the October surprise, right? It's like a month late, but it's also perfect timing too, because it's all new. Yeah. So,
Yep.
The other observation that I have is the January 6th commission is they need to have some sort of disciplinary action done, because in a lot of ways they lied to the public. They had access to these videos and they saw what happened, and they still called it a violent insurrection. They're still trying to call for Trump to be taken off the ballot in a lot of states because of Section 3 of Article 14 or of the 14th Amendment, because of this Insurrection Act. And so I think that they're doing the United States a disservice because of this.
Yeah. So let's go to a quick commercial, and then we will come back, and we're going to talk about the Argentine president who was just elected last night, because this is already sending reverberations around the world. Could this be the beginning of the correction that we've all been expecting for quite a while, away from this leftism, socialism, communism, neo-Marxism, into what should be and has been the normal way of living for quite a while. So we'll be right back. All right. So that is going to be a show that Michael is going to be headlining called America's Founding Documents. And it is going to be coming next week. So I think it's critically important to understand what our founding documents say and really dive deep into understanding the philosophy behind it and what the thought process was for putting all of these documents together and everything that was in them, because it wasn't done capriciously, it wasn't done randomly, it was done for a specific purpose. And if you can understand the mindset behind what the founders were using to fill these documents with, the philosophers that they have read, the things that they had experienced in their lives in England, when they made the decision to finally break away from the British government and come and start an entirely new country, which is just incredible to think about. I mean, the things that they did to take that chance and to leave the most industrious country in the world at that time, because you felt like they were, well, you didn't feel like, but they were being used and abused by the government. They were being overly taxed. They were having all of their rights taken away from them. And they decided to just go and do this. I think it's such an incredible thing that they did. So the fact that they did it speaks a lot to their mindset and what they learned in growing up. And these people were incredibly important. They were incredibly knowledgeable compared to what we have now. So I definitely urge you to tune in to Michael's founding document series coming up here soon. So the next thing that we were going to be talking about was Argentina's new president. He just got elected yesterday with, I believe, about 56% of the vote. And he is as anti-leftist as you can get. He is completely anti-leftist, and imagine Trump, but focus all Trump's efforts and angst at one specific group. So there's actually a few videos of him that we're going to go ahead and play, where you can see exactly what he says about the left and why he really, really, really doesn't like them.
Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. Se acabó el curro de la política. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
So essentially, he's saying he wants to get rid of every single department. Ministry of Sports and Tourism.
Tipo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera. Aunque te resistas. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, afuera. Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social, afuera. Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera. Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. Se acabó el curro de la política. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
Long live damn liberty. You gotta love a guy who does that. You gotta love a guy who does that. Gentry, is this your favorite new elected official? Yes or no?
I kind of like him a lot. His boldness is contagious. He is, I mean, he makes Trump look like a moderate, if I'm being honest. This guy, he really does. He really does.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if you've, sorry, I had some technical difficulties here, but I'm back on. I don't know if you showed the video of him talking to the reporter, but he's just like straight in your face, like using some very strong language that I totally endorse, because I mean, the place that Argentina is in is pretty dire. Apparently they've had like 150% inflation.
I was about to say that. Yep.
I saw a screenshot of their stock market this morning and it is booming.
Mm-hmm.
Like my thought process, to be honest, is why would they have an election if they're just totally socialist? Right? Because like they had this death grip on the country. So why would they even risk it?
Well, I mean, I think if you don't have it, then that sends a really bad signal to the rest of the world that you don't even have elections. I mean, we know in
Right.
Ukraine they're not having elections, but they're in an active war. So at least they have that to say, well, we really can't do this because we're in an active war. Argentina doesn't have that excuse. And you can't stifle what the people want when the people want it. Like there's
Mhm.
really nothing that you can say or do to stop the entire nation of getting something when a nation really wants it. We're not there. We talked
Mhm.
about this the other day. We're not there yet. You were talking about why don't we see more people being activists like they're doing in Spain, because of Spain, Spain has the actual socialists in power right now, and he's doing deals that they don't like. So they're out in the streets
Mhm.
demonstrating. Argentina had over 100% inflation, and the stock market was crap. They've degraded as a country in the last 40 years nonstop because socialists have been in power. At some point, the people really get fed up, and nothing you can do can stop them from getting what they want, and that is a beautiful thing. That's the power of the masses. When the masses have awoken to these ineffectualities that have been done upon them for so long. So
Mhm.
that's why I think he sounds the way he is, and he makes Trump look like a moderate, because they're past that breaking point. They were past anything that we've ever seen in America, maybe except the 1930s.
Mhm.
But that's my take on it.
Yeah. It's good news for the world if a character like Javier is in power in a socialist country, right? Because he like the Trump effect is going global, right? It's standing up to the powers that be, standing up to that, the 100 people that are running the country, and the populist movement is doing. I mean, they're doing great. My only word of caution is that let's rein it in at some point, not right now, but at some point, because when like there is such a thing as groupthink, and if we go too far, it's just not going to bode well for a lot of people. I think that his libertarian movement is exactly what they needed in Argentina to win. And I think in the United States, the conservative America First movement is exactly what we need here. So I don't think we need to go quite as far necessarily as Javier does, but I mean, I'm pretty freaking stoked. This is a win for the populist movement in the world.
Yeah, you definitely you always overcorrect, right? And
Hmm.
I said this so many times lately is we've been pulled too far to the left, right? Time moves in a forward cone. Time moves forward. And humanity tries to go down a straight line because
Hmm.
people want equilibrium, right? Uniformity in some form. So
Hmm.
you're walking in a straight line. You have political ideologies that are pushing you to the left or pulling you to the left and the right at all times. Sometimes the right we get pulled too far to the right, sometimes too far to the left. Or
Hmm.
we've been in a position where we've been pulled too far to the left, and now there's clearly a correction. But
Hmm.
the further you pull to the left means the bigger the overcorrection is. So we do
Hmm.
have to make sure that we're not overcorrected too far to the right,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of force as you pull a string. The further you pull it, there's a lot of more potential energy. As soon as you release it, that potential energy becomes actual energy, and it goes all the way to the opposite side. So it's like a string that's going back and forth. But I
Hmm.
played this video of Javier speaking. So let's take a look and listen to what he's trying to say.
Digamos, o sea, esa idea. A ver,
¿Por qué le pones de mierda, digamos?
Porque son una mierda.
Because they are shit.
O sea,
Pero vos mezclás-
no,
pero
pero,
eso-
es que
eso
si
es
pensás,
pero
si pensás distinto te van a aniquilar. Ese es el punto. Es decir, vos al zurdo no le podés dar un milímetro, porque le das un milímetro y lo toma para destrozarte. Es decir, o sea, vos no podés negociar con el zurdo.
Left
No se
hard.
negocia. No se negocia con esa mierda, no se negocia porque te van a llevar puesto. Si tienen un golpeador que caga trompadas a la mujer, digamos, si es de ellos, ¿me entendés? Se pone el pañuelito verde y grita todo el tiempo contra el neoliberalismo, lo ocultan. ¿Me entendés? O sea, si de repente hay alguien que acosó a una periodista que acosa a otra periodista, lo ocultan. Es decir, a todos los de ellos lo ocultan. Todas esas aberraciones la ocultan. Ahora, si vos estás del otro lado, a vos te van a estropear.
te van a matar, te van a dar con lo que sea. No les importa arruinarte la vida. ¿Por qué? Porque no pensás como ellos. ¿Y sabes qué es lo bueno de todo esto? Hay algo bueno en todo esto. Porque como el error es humano, como todos nos podemos equivocar, ¿sabes qué nos obligan? Nos obligan a ser mejores. Y como estamos siendo tan mejores que ellos, como los estamos aplastando en la batalla cultural, los estamos pasando de arriba, porque no solo le ganamos en lo productivo, somos superiores moralmente, somos superiores estéticamente, somos mejores en todo. Y les duele, les duele. Entonces, como no pueden pelear con las herramientas legítimas, se apalancan en el aparato represivo del Estado, poniendo torres de guita para hacernos mierda. Y aún así no pueden, no pueden. Tuvieron que bajar la nota, tuvieron que bajar la nota. ¿Me entendés? Que están perdiendo, están desesperados, están perdiendo la batalla cultural. Los zurdos de mierda, por primera vez se ven acorralados, los zurdos de mierda.
This guy just went off. I mean, you have to admire his vigor and passion about his country.
He's a great showman. That's for sure. He has an Alex Jones type delivery when he speaks, where he gets that very deep, just visceral, like, voice that almost like a lion growling, and that really comes through across. And what he's saying, he's very vivid in his animations and his facial gestures and the way he moves his hands. And it's something to see.
Yeah. Big win for Argentina. I don't know if you want to. There's another little piece of data point I wanted to pull up on him, just to make everybody aware of the World Economic Forum piece that's on him.
Oh, where they said he was a member, he was associated with.
I just, because it's going around the internet. I posted it just because I wanted to be transparent and everything like that. There's a couple ways to think about it. Number one, you can think about it the same way that Vivek Ramaswamy was put on the WEF forum or their website without his consent, and maybe he didn't get it taken down. Maybe he was part of it, and then he saw better, because it does say on the website that he was a chief economist. And I wonder if he saw what was going on in the U.S. and saying, "Hey, I actually don't want that to happen in my country. I don't want my country to turn out like San Francisco or LA or Chicago or New York or Seattle or Portland or whatever," because, I mean, they were probably sold a bill of goods when they got into this thing, and they're like, "Oh, the World Economic Forum, like, it's cool, it's global leaders," right? It's like, like, if you don't know, it might be like a really cool opportunity, but then when you start to see behind the curtain, you're like, "Oh, like, this isn't actually like a really, really good thing." So there's that. There's that way to look at it, that he actually saw the light. So so he's on the website. My thought process is that he probably did join, and then he saw the light, because I firmly believe that people can change. I don't subscribe to the fact that once you're in these groups that you're always evil. I mean, Trump is a perfect example of this. He was a registered Democrat for a very, very long time. He was donors to the Clinton campaign, and he was really critical about Bush. And he wasn't a big fan of Obama, but he was in with a lot of these Democrats, and now he's one of the America First proponents, right? He's kind of the leader in this movement in America. So, I mean, that's my take. I want to be fair with what I'm seeing online, because we don't want like another controlled opposition, right?
Yeah, there's I see the WEF and I see what they're going for, right? I mean, it's not only that I see it, people see it. It's trying to make the coolest club that everyone is a part of, that if you're not a part of it, you're on the outside looking in. If you're if you're on the inside, then you have this special alacrity, to use a word that I like, a special insight into what's really happening in the world, and you have a close enough reach to the power structures that be that you're going to be one of those people. So I think that they used that, and just essentially anytime that they reached out to someone, or maybe someone expressed interest in maybe joining one of their conference, they took that as a carte blanche to maybe put their information out there and say, well, you know, they are associated with us, because technically an association could be deemed an association no matter how little or how strong that reason is. Right. So if they're exchanging emails, I mean, you know, who knows? But there's been more than a few times than that I've seen people say, like, I don't even know why they had me up there. I think they did to Elon Musk, right? Of course, Vivek, and you know, so my gut tells me that from everything that he's written as The Economist, that everything he's done has said that this is not, I mean, he's not really part of them. And but just to be clear, we don't want to show both sides.
We're not even showing both sides. We wouldn't just show the truth, right? We're not trying to show the leftist side, right? But I mean, pretty sure Dan Crenshaw is on the list, Tulsi Gabbard's on the list, of like the young leaders, right?
Yeah.
So like we want to show the truth on this show, and so I think it's important. But what I would look at is what kind of enemies is he making, right? Patrick Bet David has a book out right now that is actually on the way to my house. It's about choosing your enemies wisely, and I feel like a lot of these guys are, especially Javier. He's made an incredible amount of enemies, right? If he's going to come in and just totally dismantle the socialist infrastructure that has been put in Argentina, then he's making the right enemies, and that means he's for the people.
Yeah, I think there's a ramp up time where you have to change the mentality of people, of the population, and what they want. Because if a population has been downtrodden and has just been subjugated for so long, thinking mental wise, not actual physical slavery, you know, in some countries that is the reality, but you have to change the way people think and the way people and what people aspire to do in their lives. And I think once you can change that, then you can have this type of environment where people want other people very similar to him. Maybe not as strong as, you know, the way that he speaks about things, but I think in the very beginning you have to cast off the illusions that socialism is good, and then realize that as a country, no, we need this. And I think there's a quote that he says, I don't want to lead lambs. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, he goes, I don't want to be a leader of lambs. I want to reactivate the lions in my country. So that's how I feel about him. I think it's a great thing that he's there. As we said, he can't, it's going to take him a while to maybe change the culture in Argentine politics, but it's a good beginning. Just like Trump, when he got in there, a lot of people who hated him now are supporting him. And he really helped change the mentality of what should be done.
Exactly.
So
I don't know.
We'll go to commercial after this. Yeah, we'll go to commercial, and then after this, we're going to be talking about what are we talking about, Mike? Not Mike, Gentry.
We're going to talk about how to talk about politics during the holidays.
That's an important one. We'll be right back. By the way, your show's coming next week. Excited.
I am pumped for it. It's going to be a daily show mixed with like news and culture and some of my thoughts on how to make America great again. Part of that, by the way, is how to talk to your family about politics and current events and news and all this kind of stuff. So there is basically two ways in my mind. One of them is going to be really fun, and the other one is going to be really smart. Okay. So the fun way to do it would be to go through all the January 6th tapes and create an edit, create a slideshow, create a video, and basically go Alex Jones on them and tell them that they're wrong, tell them that it wasn't an insurrection, tell them that they've been lied to by the media, and then show them proof. I think that is probably the most fun way to do it, but maybe not the best way to do it. I probably won't do that. My family's all pretty like-minded. In fact, my mom and my dad send me stories all the time to post. So I really appreciate that. It's actually really cool. But that's the fun way. The smart way is to ask really good questions, right? The Socratic method. And you kind of have to figure out like the right questions to ask and kind of think about it like a lawyer, not necessarily like as a gotcha, but trying to lead them to a conclusion. And the conclusion is that maybe they're not right. Don't try to prove that you're necessarily right, but try to prove that they're wrong in a way. There's a really good book. I encourage everybody to read it. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think it's the first chapter or the first couple chapters, it talks about if you try to prove somebody wrong, they're going to be more convinced that they're right. So don't necessarily like try to like get them in a gotcha moment, but just ask pointed questions. Just say, oh, why do you think that? Do you have any proof to back that? Well, have you considered this? Here's what I've been seeing. Do you think that this is good? It's always really helpful to pull up trusted sources by them. So the CDC is actually a really good way to do that if you're talking about COVID. And they published a lot of stuff that masks don't work and that the survival rate of COVID throughout all the age brackets is like 99.97%, right? There's a lot of comorbidities that happen. And so you can even change the conversation to saying, hey, well, why didn't they just say, go on a walk or eat healthier, stop eating McDonald's, or, go to the gym or drink more water instead of just forcing a vaccine on people. So that's just some preliminary items that I always go to.
Another good way to allow people to think critically about their own positions, politically, culturally, morally, is to ask them this. And I love doing this. So you make a statement and you say, Donald Trump is the worst president ever. I would say, how sure are you about that? Like, how confident are you in your statement? 100%, 98%, 70%, what? Just give me a range. Now, if you say 100%, then my response would be, well, nothing in life is 100%. Not even the fact that the sun will shine tomorrow in the morning. So knowing that not even that is assured for the next day. And if if you're religious, the Bible even says tomorrow is not promised, essentially. But if they're not religious, say not even the sun is guaranteed to shine tomorrow. So if we can't be 100% about that, then you want to readjust your percentage of you being sure. And let's say they go to 90%. Okay, now we're at 90%. Still good. Now, what would you think that other 10% that you're not sure about would comprise? What would that look like? Tell me, like, what would that look like? And then what they do is they start to develop a picture in their mind, a critical picture of their own position. And they might say, well, I think that, okay, I guess maybe, and they start conceding a little bit. And that concession that they make is something for you to start delving into even more, because now they're starting to essentially paint a picture, even though they may not agree with it consciously. Their subconscious is painting a picture that agrees with your position. And then sometimes that's all you need to start talking about what that would look like. So now you're not talking about a contentious point. You're just talking about what they told you may be another solution to what their dilemma is, which is thinking, is he the worst president or not? And if they start thinking, okay, well, maybe he's not the worst president. Now you've made progress where otherwise you'd have a hard time and just butt heads with your family. And it's a way for them to feel like they still have control of the conversation, but you're the one guiding it. You're allowing, you're guiding their brain to concoct these images that may not, rely on what they initially proposed to you.
another way to do it too is to ask them what their criteria is, right? So in the example that you just brought up, what comprises the worst president? Like, what criteria are you looking at? Because there's a whole bunch of like economic data that we can look up and see that Trump actually was one of the best presidents from that perspective. And that's something that affects everyone's life, right? Like the abortion issue, the trans issue, the sexualization of kids, like it doesn't necessarily affect everyone's life, but the economics does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can look at, okay, well, interest rates were really low. A lot of people could get into houses. Houses are about the same price, but the interest rate is like triple in some cases, right? Depending on when you buy it. So you're going to pay triple for that house on a month-to-month basis. It costs way more in gas and groceries and all this kind of stuff, right? So from that perspective, I mean, Trump is and was the best president that we've ever had. But just like making sure that you get them to kind of prove their point and get them to think critically about it, kind of like what you were saying, like make them prove you, or make them prove to you that what they're saying is true. Because a lot of the times these liberal talking points are just talking points, and they don't really think a layer deeper. I've always said this: the Democrats are guilty of lazy thinking.
Yeah, there's and again, the whole Trump thing is just one point, and that's I wouldn't lead with that because that's a big statement that immediately invokes anger from someone who doesn't believe like you. But you can easily go to another issue and then build up to whatever issue you'd like. So, for instance, do you feel like children should spend as much time as they are on things like anti-racism and wokeness and DEI and CE, like all these things in school, or do you think that kids should spend it learning about the world, the objective, actual world, not the world inside people's heads, right? Like if you can get them to concede on a smaller issue than that, even a question so simple as, do you think the world's headed in the right direction right now? That's an easy one, because if they say yes, then that's a really hard decision to defend, right? Well, how so? How is the world getting better? And then let them explain to you, because that's a really hard one to defend. And if they say no, which is what most people are going to say, well, why not? And then now the floodgates open. Now they're giving you things that they don't agree with, that they're unhappy with, that you can use to your advantage, and really dive deeper into those specific ones and say, okay, well, you know what? Let's focus on this. You say that children are getting, dumber or whatever, or the economy is worse off. Why do you think that is? And then you can go from there. So that's one way that I would approach it, because then you're not fighting with them. You're just talking about, you're trying to find solutions to the problems together. Yep.
And you also have to remember, this is your family, right? And so you don't want to create a feud with them. Sometimes it's better just to shut up if it gets too heated. You don't want to ruin Thanksgiving. You don't want to ruin Christmas because of this conversation, right? If the conversation comes up, then talk about it. I wouldn't be the one bringing it up, because as we know, a lot of these Democrats get really, really heated. And it also gets even more heated because they're more comfortable, because they're your family, and we want to really protect the family unit. And I just like promote harmony, not unity, right? Because unity, to take the lexicon of the left, is just uniformity, but harmony is living in an environment where people just don't always necessarily agree, but they agree to disagree, right? This is your family. We don't want you to blow up Thanksgiving over this, but we also don't want you to back down. And so asking these really good pointed questions, making them defend their statements. And if you do get on a soapbox, make sure to get off really quick and acknowledge that you got on your soapbox. I do that all the time. I just listen, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Like, I'll stop. Okay. it even shows self-awareness that people will appreciate.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to do things together than it is to do things alone and fight
Mhm.
over even the smallest issue. If the goal is to, well, not if, we know the goal of the left of neo-Marxism is to break apart the nuclear family. That's been said in many writings of the fathers of wokeness and the philosophers that have led to this type of world that we're living in now. They specifically have written that a nuclear family is the biggest detriment to socialism and communism enacting. You have to break apart the family. And what better way to do that than to get one of the members of the family who believes in this and and these crazy theories to start fighting at dinner, and then now no one talks. That's exactly what they want. This is exactly what they want. So as a prudent person, you need to acknowledge that and know that and say, when I go to speak to my family, I understand that this is what they want to happen, even though the family member that has all these mentalities of this leftism doesn't know that. You know that that's the goal, and you can even tell them, did you know that Antonio Gramsci, one of the founding fathers of this neo-Marxism, whatever, says that they want to break us up? And if you start with that baseline, then
Mhm.
anything that happens after that, at least they know, well, yeah, I mean, I don't really agree with him saying that, and I hope you don't
Mhm.
either. And your family member should say, yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with you. Because if they say, yeah, I agree with him, then I mean, that's a whole other problem.
Mhm. One thing I might do too is just tell people that you're family and you don't want this to break them apart. So kind of like what you were saying, just preempt that thought and just say, hey, like you're gonna be family after this conversation. Like let's make sure to keep this civil. Let's make sure to, if we disagree, let's agree to disagree and not try to like convince each other that we're right or wrong, because there's not a whole bunch of convincing that is probably going to happen around the dinner table. To be honest, like people are going to come in with their guards up because they know that you're really political. They know that it might come up, and they're just going to, they're kind of tense. They're anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you can release the tension on that and just say, hey, like, I love you, we're family. And even if you guys are like, maybe your families aren't like as tight as mine is, maybe you can use it as a way to get closer to your family and just say, hey, like, we're family. Like, I love you because we're family. Like, let's have a great time during Thanksgiving. Like, and if it does get too heated, just stop talking about it. That shows maturity, and people are attracted to that, and they're going to come circle back and say, hey, like, what, can we continue talking about this? Because you were actually really knowledgeable about XYZ, and I've never heard any of this stuff, and I want to know where you're getting your information from. And then you can say, hey, I'm actually following Fabian and Gentry, so you should follow us.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah. I like what you said about preempting it. In my
Mhm.
head, what I immediately thought of is there's a point during the dinner where things start getting political, and you already know it's coming, right? There's chit chat, and then there's, once you kind of run out of that chit chat, things started getting a little deeper. I would immediately go, listen, this is getting political. I know where this is going. I just want to say we can get into this, but I want to make sure, like you said,
Good.
after this, we're going to be fine. It's not going to get heated. We're just going to say what we think is best, and not vilify the other side or anything like that. So if we can all agree to those ground rules, then let's have a civil conversation. And after that, we're going to be too full to fight because we're going to eat this amazing food. Now let's talk. And I think doing that, I mean, people are going to laugh and agree.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And then it just sets the whole tone for whatever's coming after.
Because no one can disagree with that unless someone is just anti-family, which I don't know why they're invited to Thanksgiving anyway.
Yeah. So I'm excited to hear stories of people at Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
if you have a good story, reach out to us, shoot us a DM, and let us know, because I'd love to see how these things go now that you have the information that you have.
You know what we should do? We should review some stories that people send us on the show.
I agree.
I think that'd be a great idea. So
just make sure that you really practice what you're going to ask them, not tell them. There's a big
Mhm.
difference. Again, what you're going to ask them, not tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to get insight into what, I mean, everybody's hurting. Everybody is hurting, right? You just want to find out what they're hurting, where they're hurting, and then talk
Mhm.
about that, and then how you can, what they believe a solution to that problem could be. And then, like
Mhm.
I said, you're working together to solve a problem. You're not in opposition, because if you're just telling someone how the world should be, you have no idea what they think about it. They may even agree with you on some points, but unless you're listening to them, then you're never gonna find out. So
Exactly.
yeah. Well, I'm excited for your show next week. And we also have a few more things in the works. So very excited to get those out to everyone. We said it before and we'll say it again. We were planning a lot of things in the very, very near future. So make sure you stick around and check out what we are doing. Also, of course, like this video if you're sticking around this long. It really helps the algorithm know to show us to more people so we can spread this message and spread this word, and share it with your friends, specifically if there's a part that you want them to know about, like anything that we said here. And we really appreciate all the love that we've been getting on social media, and actually in person as well. I was at a Friendsgiving yesterday and people were coming up to me. There's like 50 people there. Hey man, like I love what you're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. It really helps me just think about things I never really thought about. So it's really good to hear that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
So anything else, Gentry, before we get out of here?
No, this is a great show.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around, and we will see you tomorrow.